Football is back, baby. Life is finally worth living again. I am so excited for cooler weather, pizza, wings, cold ones, the boys to crack them open with, and sitting back and watching some good old NFL action. There is nothing better than football season. Right, I suppose, since football season is here, means it's Madden season too. So the latest installment of Madden NFL is out, and people are not happy. I can't remember the last time an installment of Madden came out that wasn't met with immediate and aggressive disdain. Now, to be fair, the internet kind of just be that way. But at the same time, in the case of Madden specifically, I think a lot of people's complaints are sort of justified. Graphics have been slow to update, if they're updated at all. Animations are repeated. New releases are plagued with bugs. The implementation of new features has slowed to a trickle. Fan-favorite game modes keep sort of disappearing and coming back in worse ways than they were before, and everything is just sort of getting replaced with a focus on microtransactions and virtual trading cards and this Ultimate Team stuff that some people are really into, but a lot of others aren't. Now, a lot of this does come down to the fact that Madden is a yearly release. A new year of football means that a new entry in the football video game series has to come out. You need the new graphics, the new roster, the new stadiums, if that's applicable. Unless you're Game Shark, in which case you do whatever the fuck you want, and you come out with your own roster update CDs for Madden yourself. But despite being centered around a professional sport, EA is not immune to the problems that come with a shortened development schedule, even if, in theory, you're not changing a lot about the game. Remember how Assassin's Creed finally had to take a break from the yearly releases because the quality kept sort of falling through the floor? Or how the WWE 2K series had to skip an entire year this year because the games were so unstable? Well, unfortunately, the NFL is too prolific and too profitable for EA to be able to pump the brakes on putting out a new game. The NFL needs their new game, and they need it every year. Oh, and in case you're wondering, yes, EA does have the exclusive NFL license for video games. They've actually had the license since 2005, and they, I believe, just recently extended it for another 6 years or so, which is great for us. All of these problems, all the diminishing returns, all the sort of disappointment in the yearly Madden releases, it makes people, myself included, I think, pine for the days of other brands of NFL games. The weird games, the unique games, the strange ones, just alternate brands. So how about we take some time and not give EA our money and reminisce about football games from days gone by. No Madden allowed. Alright, so to begin, I would like to start with a Madden game. Hear me out. I know, breaking my own rule immediately, but this is seriously one of my favorite football games, and I just had to include it because it's not really part of the regular series. Leaving a year off of it and just making it a Madden NFL Football sort of makes it timeless. Of course, when you boot the game, the rosters and some other details will immediately date the game, but it still sort of feels like a standalone relic, unlike, say, Madden 13 on the PlayStation Vita. So, Madden NFL Football on the 3DS features your standard 11-on-11 football with full playbooks and even commentary by Chris Collinsworth. And there's also a sort of arcadey 5-on-5 football mode, where you have 4 downs to get a touchdown, first team to 30 wins, street rules. The game does recycle some PS2 Madden animations, but it's just stylized enough. The players are just sort of smoothed out and bulked up enough to make it look great on the handheld system. The graphics really haven't aged that poorly at all, and the 3D effect itself is actually amazing. Spotlight moments is probably the most unique part of this game, There are little moments where there's a sort of critical decision and the game slows down and gives you a choice. Either mash a button, pick a direction, things like that, and it sort of changes the outcome of a play. That's pretty much it for Madden NFL Football. You got your season mode, which you can play in 11 on 11 or 5 on 5 mode, and of course play now, but that's about it. It's a solid football game for mobile, especially considering the hardware limitations of the Nintendo 3DS. But all in all, I really enjoy it. The truth is, I just highly recommend this game for anyone who's a big NFL fan and also happens to have a Nintendo 3DS. I know it's not easy to find 3DS games anymore, but I promise, if you like football, it's worth the price of admission. By the way, if you are a Nintendo fan, and you're sort of wondering why EA isn't bringing Madden over to the Nintendo Switch, like some of its other games, this is sort of one of the litmus tests that told them that it wouldn't be a successful venture. EA's history with bringing games to Nintendo consoles is pretty patchy. The Nintendo Wii featured sort of off-brand or alternate versions of games like the Madden All Play series, which was sort of babied down, as well as the NFL training camp game, which was more exercise and less football. There was, of course, this on the 3DS, and given how obscure it seems to be, I'm imagining that it did not sell very well. All those sorts of things have told EA that football is not going to succeed on Nintendo consoles anymore. I guess the population of NFL fans and Nintendo fans doesn't have a whole lot of overlap. Anyway, that's enough of the Madden games. I just wanted to get that out of the way before we got to the more obscure, old, off-brand type NFL games. At least the ones that actually resemble football and not just this.
Ready, down! Hunt! Ready, set, play!
So, if you were looking for football games that actually resembled football in the 1990s, you actually had a lot of options on a lot of different consoles. For example, I have two right here for the Sega CD, Joe Montana Football and ESPN Sunday Night NFL. ESPN Sunday Night NFL for the Sega CD, featuring the one and only Chris Berman. Now, I know what you're thinking, but no, unfortunately, there were no details inside about the WWF pinball machine. Trust me, I looked. But yeah, this is a full-on NFL game featuring all 28 teams. That's right, kids, there didn't always used to be 32 teams. In fact, there only used to be 3 divisions per conference, with some divisions having 4 teams and others having 5 teams. And, teams coming in and out of the league, it was all a big mess. So, when they say you get all the teams, you're getting your money's worth. Anyway, this game is harmless fun. I think featuring Chris Berman is a bit of a stretch, given it's just a picture of him with his mouth flapping open and closed. In fact, the whole game kind of has that old Mortal Kombat aesthetic of just having pictures imported to represent certain things. But it's a sort of standard football game. Nothing terribly great, nothing terribly terrible. Except sometimes it doesn't work. Joe Montana's NFL Football. It's his NFL Football. Graphics that could impress most people. Some video clips with Joe Montana himself. Wow, this game really has it all. It's not that this is a bad football game necessarily, it's just that the game's sort of sluggish and hard to control, and sometimes the physics are wonky, and the kicking system is kind of silly, and it's just not a very good game. You know, of the two of these, I think I'm sort of partial to the ESPN Sunday Night with Chris Berman. But either way, these are really surprisingly good games for the time and for the console. But of course, NFL games hadn't even begun to develop yet. And if we're going to start anywhere, we should start with the granddaddy of fun NFL games, NFL Blitz. Though never taking off quite as much as its inspiration, NBA Jam, the NFL Blitz series of games was a much beloved arcade series featuring crazy, over-the-top, extreme football action, fast-paced, hard-hitting, and just all-around craziness. It is entirely responsible for the subgenre of arcade football games, some of which we'll explore throughout the rest of this video. But the NFL Blitz series itself, especially the first game, still have a cult following. The games are beloved for their pure sense of fun and chaos. Of course, every masterpiece has its cheap imitation.
What's up, chump? Yo, I love this game. I'm on fire. You know you can. You don't want none of me. Excuse me. Bring it. I own you. You all mine. Come to that.
I love this introduction because it's supposed to show you the angry, edgy, hard side of football, but really it's just showing a bunch of bloopers of like referees and camera people getting knocked over. Anyway, this is NFL Xtreme 2, the second game in 989 Sports' NFL Xtreme series. A series of 2 games. Featuring John Randall on the cover, topless Ed McCaffrey on the back, and flaming skydiving cheerleaders on the loading screens.
Welcome to NFL Xtreme. Today's brawl is between the Denver Broncos and the Atlanta Falcons.
So this game plays fast, and I mean really, really fast.
Gets the first down.
Did he just rip my clothes off? Anyway, NFL Xtreme is exactly what it looks like. Fast-paced, no penalties, arcadey football action. It was made to compete with NFL Blitz, and boy does it not do that. This game is inferior, whether it's sound design, controls, graphics. Everything it does, the NFL Blitz series tends to do better.
I'm the man. This is my crib.
Touchdown.
Wait, is that supposed to be Shannon Sharp? Looking a little bit different these days, buddy.
Don't worry about what I do.
Some Sonic kid.
And there you have it. NFL Xtreme is a game where if you get bored of playing bad football, you can just beat the shit out of your opponents.
Get some.
Broncos win.
This motherfucker's dropped back 40 yards to make this pass. Seriously, look at this. If you actually slow it down, it looks like the play starts around the 35 or 40, and he drops back all the way to like the 20-yard line before he makes a throw. Dude, just get rid of the ball. And that is our introduction to NFL Quarterback Club 97 by Acclaim, a game series I'd never even heard of before making this video. But you know this game is legit because the review quote on the front is attributed to video games themselves. That's some high praise. Given the name of the series, coming into this I was expecting something more along the lines of the skill challenges they do at the Pro Bowl and stuff.
Golly.
Not full NFL game gameplay. And yet, that's exactly what we get. Why is the flag upside down? Anyway, yes, this game gives you expansive playbooks, a simulation mode, dedicated Pro Bowl games, and a really innovative pseudo 3D replay system with slow motion and everything. Unfortunately, they might have been a little too innovative, as the control scheme is so complicated that they couldn't print it in the manual and had to provide every copy of the game with a special insert of all the instructions. Now, luckily, they did sort of account for this and make it so that if you don't input anything after snapping the ball, the quarterback will just sort of automatically throw it to a receiver. Oh, and did I mention that this game features trash talk options?
Say, give me some prayers, let's go, man, let's go. Say, you're bad. Welcome to the NFL, baby.
Truly the authentic quarterback experience. Alright, we've all had our fun and games of looking at the relics of NFL entertainment. But I think we should spend a little time looking at the OG, the game that got Sonic Kid here into football. And that is Humongous Entertainment's own legendary Backyard Football. After the runaway success that was Humongous Games' Backyard Baseball, they decided to try their hand at a bunch of other sports, such as basketball, hockey, etc. Though I did play all of these as a kid, none of them meant quite as much to me as Backyard Football, which I ended up finding and playing at a time where I was actually starting to get into real football as well. This game doesn't feature full rosters of teams or anything like that. Rather, it has a couple of the all-stars of the time, such as John Elway and Brett Favre, as well as the regular crew of backyard sports kids, like Pete Wheeler and my boy Pablo Sanchez. The game features a Play Now mode, where you can draft kids from a sort of randomly selected bunch of the entire roster, or you can do a season mode, where you compete for varying different trophies as you climb your way through the league ranks. Overall, it's a silly experience. You have crazy special moves, you can customize teams, and at one point you could even do some online stuff, though I don't remember exactly what those features are anymore. But all in all, as a kid, this was the football game to play. The late 90s and early 2000s saw just an absolute explosion of NFL games. All sorts of different companies wanted a piece of the pie. They had their own ideas on presentation, on graphics, on playbooks, on gameplay features. So there was just an absolute buffet of football games for you to play. Now, keep in mind, Madden had already been going for years by this point, and while it hadn't yet monopolized the football video game market, it was sort of becoming the name brand. But other people wanted to put a stop to that, including Microsoft. With their newly minted console, the original Xbox, they came out with their own series of NFL games called NFL Fever, starring my boy, your boy, our boy, Peyton Manning, right on the cover.
And I'm quick to go sign the hard rhymer. With the keep from getting jerked, changing some ways. The way back in the better days, raw metaphysical bold, never follow the code. Still drop the load, known as fair and square throughout my years. So I growl at the living foul, black to the bone, my home is your home. Well, welcome to the Terror Dome.
Having been made by Microsoft, the reach of the NFL Fever series was very limited, being born on Windows systems and dying on the original Xbox. A lot of people still swear by this series, though if the reviews are any indication, the 2002 edition, the first on the Xbox, was the height of the series and it only got worse from there. The series came with a lot of features, including training camp, fantasy tournaments, and a lot of pre-snap options for really customizing your gameplay. Unfortunately, its exclusivity in a time where a bunch of different game companies were coming out with NFL games for every system means that this series died, perhaps a premature death. Not to be left behind with the old generations of games, 989 Sports, those guys responsible for the knockoff NFL Blitz, NFL Xtreme, they started a new series of football games called NFL Gameday that was actually pretty successful.
In the toil of summer, with its sweat, tears, and blood, these men begin their journey, thinking of the formidable mountain they must climb.
Starting on the PlayStation 1, the NFL Gameday series was very popular for good reason. The series put a lot of effort into its appearance and presentation, really giving you the, well, game day feeling. Even going so far as to make its manuals and game cases look like stadium programs or local newspapers. Inside the game, you can find all sorts of fun ways to play, including very in-depth season and GM modes. There are all sorts of little touches that add a ton to the gameplay experience and the immersion. Different statistical breakdowns, stadium attendance that changes with each game, in-depth commentator conversations about strategies and different players, key matchups. In GM mode you have season outlooks and upcoming MVP awards. There is a lot to enjoy about the Gameday series. Unfortunately for me, I never found the gameplay of the Gameday series that appealing. There's nothing technically bad about it, everything's very responsive, and the game actually moves a lot faster than some of its contemporaries. But for some reason the gameplay just never clicked with me, I never found it that fun. So despite the sort of environment of the game, the immersion, all the little details that make it feel like you're really inside an NFL game or an NFL broadcast, I could just never play these games for very long. There have been a lot of great football games so far. Some people still swear by games like NFL Fever or Gameday, but all of that is child's play compared to how Sega Sports would shift the entire market of sports video games forever. Sega started their own line of NFL games, the NFL 2K games, powered by ESPN. Though I did grow up as a Madden kid primarily, of all the alternate NFL games, the 2K games were definitely my favorite. And we'll sort of see how this series evolved here in a bit. But I remember playing a ton of 2K3, and I honestly can't wait to look at it again.
Hi there, welcome to Sports Center. I'm Dan Patrick. Plenty of good stuff to get to on the program tonight. But first, our top story of the day. Sega Sports, the authority in sports video gaming, has drafted ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, as a key player to boost its critically acclaimed Sega Sports franchises to a higher level in order to score with gamers. Let's have a look, shall we? First to the NFL, and the Patriots, the Cinderella story of last year, took everyone by surprise. They will have the bullseye on them this year.
Oh, check out these moves. Oh, that's gotta hurt.
What a hit! Yes!
Unbelievable. Oh!
Up the middle and cut!
What a smash. Oh, that's how you do it.
Yes!
Another painful stop. Yes! Erlacher again with the stop.
This is NFL 2K3 on ESPN.
NFL 2K3 is a beast of a game. Being powered by ESPN, quote unquote, actually really shows. Everything about the game looks like a sort of mid-2000s ESPN presentation, which, a lot like NFL Gameday, really adds a lot to the immersion and the environment of the game. All that aside, however, this game is just so much fun to play. One of the more inconsequential details that I like a lot is that when you're picking a play, it actually shows you your scheme live on the field instead of just showing the X's and O's on a separate menu. It's a little thing, but it's surprisingly uncommon. The gameplay is very tight and responsive. The animations are extremely smooth. At times it looks like they're almost physics-based, and though I know they're not, they're certainly not the cookie-cutter style animations that are snapped together at certain times, which is a problem that the Madden series is accused of even to this very day. The commentary from the announcers is pretty solid. That paired with all the ESPN presentation, the cool camera angles when going to halftime or on replays and stuff, everything sort of adds up and makes it look like a real broadcast. As was standard by this point, NFL 2K3 came with a bunch of different gameplay modes, including your Play Now, Season Mode, a surprisingly fun franchise mode where you sort of take over the operations of a team, online games, but while all of those are great modes, it's the next installment of the series that would add so much to football video games. So the very next year, with the next installment of the Sega Sports 2K series, that powered by ESPN bit, that would be front and center, as the series turned into ESPN Football.
The following is a special presentation from ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Hi everybody, I'm Chris Berman, and welcome to ESPN's NFL Football. Trust me, a lot of work has gone into and a lot of pleasure has gone into combining the best that ESPN and the NFL have to offer. So, without further delay, let's go straight to the game. The 10. Touchdown. He could go all the way.
I mean, look at this. That's ESPN, dude. I'm sorry, but there is so much cool shit in this game. I gotta talk about it. The Crib, which is a virtual space where you get to celebrate all of your accomplishments that you've built up over the course of playing the game. You can unlock mini-games, you can put trophies in a case, you can change the layout of things. It's completely useless, I know that, but it's cool and it makes it feel like you can actually personalize your game, which is something not a lot of games give you. It would be an enormous mistake to not talk about this. First-person football.
Let's start this off! It's our house! Come on! Get used to it, baby! Get pumped! Come on, y'all!
I mean, seriously, maybe at some point another game series has done this with football, but not one I can think of, and it's just such a unique and fun way to play the game. And you can play entire games like this. It's so cool. It's not just a little gimmick that you run for a few plays. You can play an entire game in first-person mode, and it's noisy and it's chaotic, and you can switch players on the fly, and it's amazing. I don't even actually have to sell you on it. Just watch this.
And takes up a bit of a gamble, but once he gets past the 20, all is forgiven.
Now, don't worry, the regular football mode is just as polished and high quality as it ever was. The presentation, the animations, everything has been given a level of love and attention and shine that is deserved, given that the series has now adopted the ESPN branding. All in all, this is an awesome football game. Now, the following year's installment, ESPN 2K5, is the game that people claim to this day is the best football game ever made. Now, personally, I didn't own that game, and I wasn't able to find a copy in time for this video, and I certainly believe them. In general, the ESPN or Sega Sports 2K, or whatever you want to call this series of football games, is quality, top to bottom, every installment. It's a real shame, in fact, that the ESPN 2K5 game is the very reason EA Sports decided to buy out the NFL license outright so that they wouldn't have competitors anymore. That is how good this football series was. Rest in peace, old friend. So as you can see, there were lots of choices for full season, full lineup of teams, full playbook, standard, season mode ready NFL games. But say that's not your thing. Say you like football, but you don't want the more simulation style game. Say you want something a little bit more arcadey or a little bit of a spin-off, so to speak. What would you play? Well, lucky for you, there was tons of that shit too. Let's go ahead and start with the obvious. The true spiritual successor to the NFL Blitz series, NFL Street, by none other than EA Sports Big.
EA Sports.
Sometimes in life, yo, you're gonna break down, get your weight up, kill the hate, and put it down. You know what's in your heart from start, gotta do it alone. At the end of the day, this game just sticks and stones. Let's go, let's go. You gotta do it by yourself. This time's hard. You gotta make it by yourself. You can't starve. You're gonna do it by yourself. You got hard. You're gonna make it by yourself. Now go start. You gotta do it by yourself. This time's hard. You're gonna make it by yourself. You can't starve. You're gonna do it by yourself. You got hard. You're gonna make it by yourself. Now go start. Time to play now. Time to play now. Time to play now. Tell me where the playground.
Highly stylized and catered to a new generation of NFL arcade game fans, the hip-hop flavored NFL Street was a breath of fresh air. Taking obvious inspiration from the arcade games that came before it, in particular, of course, NFL Blitz, NFL Street is 7-on-7 football that replaces the rules with style and brutality.
What's the problem? Pick this field. There's nothing wrong with this field. Man, get out there. Whatever, man. You tripping.
What it lacks in playbook and roster depth, it more than makes up for with its unique brand of gameplay. Behind the back laterals, between the leg throws downfield, body slams, NFL Street was built different. It's exciting, it's crunchy, and it's a wholly different brand of fun than the more simulation style games like Madden. If you haven't played it yet, get a copy and make sure you play it with friends. NFL Street was super successful. It would go on to get a second and even a third installment. But eventually, as the video game console generation was starting to shift, EA Sports Big apparently wanted to distance itself from the NFL Street thing, so they decided to create a spiritual successor to that series. Unfortunately for them, it was much worse and did not turn into a series of its own. I am, of course, talking about NFL Tour. I have no idea what they were thinking. Okay, like, I get it, sort of. They wanted to move away from the urban street theme and move more towards a bright lights, fireworks, game show type setting. It's exciting, it's hype, at least they thought so. But instead, what it ends up coming off as is sterile and boring. They have this annoying voice announcer who is constantly, I mean incessantly, breaking the fourth wall about how he's an annoying video game announcer. The gameplay is sluggish, the plays aren't nearly as fun, and overall, the experience is just completely lacking, especially given what came before. I'm sure NFL Tour has its fans, but this is one of the last EA Sports big releases before that sort of sub-development team went away. So this definitely came out at a time where EA was looking at leaning back more towards the mainstream market, keeping everything PG and simulation style. And it really shows in this game. It's a little too clean, it's a little too boring, and while it pretends to be something that NFL Street really was, it absolutely falls on its face. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, I don't. But I'm going to assume that you're thinking, Sonic Kid, I don't even like NFL. I want football action that's not tied to the National Football League. AFC, NFC, I don't even know what those mean, but I want to play some football. What do I do then? Well, EA Sports has you covered there too. How about we take a dive into arena football? Alright, I'll be honest. I've never once watched a game of arena football, but I know for a fact that someone has, because it got a video game.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
Marcus Nash, Las Vegas Gladiators, EA Sports, it's in the game.
EA Sports Arena Football.
The AFL, or Arena Football League, is one of the few football leagues here in the States to survive under the pointed heel of the NFL. Granted, this is most likely because arena football is so wildly different from the NFL and other brands of gridiron football. Other leagues, like the Alliance of American Football and the XFL, were just a little bit too similar to the NFL and got crushed by the popularity of the already well-established teams. What you'll find here is, I assume, a pretty faithful recreation of the arena football experience, at least as much of one as you could get in 2006. All of the league's teams appear to be here. It looks like the arenas are faithful. Playing as the Colorado Crush, of course, they had the Pepsi Center. And there's also a sort of weird focus on the quote-unquote realism of coaches getting mad at players. Seriously, between plays or whatever, they'll show clips of coaches screaming at players or hitting them. It's really weird.
What is going on out there? Are you paying attention? Do you even know what's going on? I don't think so. Get out of my sight.
Other than that, it's arena football, alright. And what is arena football, you might ask? I don't know.
Do you even know what's going on? I don't think so.
I am terrible at playing this game, probably because I don't understand arena football and its rules. For example, on the defense, defenders can't move prior to the snap, and defensive backs have to stand in a certain box, and blitzes are illegal unless you have a blitz passport or some shit, I don't know. The field goal system is radically different, the field is shorter. This is different, I am scared and alone. I think I've had enough arena football for one day. Okay. So maybe you're the sort of player who's the opposite. Maybe you don't really want the football action, but you want to call the shots, manage teams, balance the books, and do some player recruiting. Well, once again, EA Sports has you covered with the one-entry series of NFL Head Coach.
Last Sunday's Super Bowl 40 saw one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL play the perfect game of chess. High above the stands in Ford Field, he made the calls while his team toyed with the league's most productive offense on football's biggest day. With the Lombardi Trophy now on his resume, this coordinator will lead a team as a head coach. Let's take a closer look at the defensive mastermind.
Oh, NFL head coach, you underappreciated gem. A nightmare simulator disguised as a football game, NFL head coach is a surprisingly in-depth game dedicated to the sideline side of football. There is so much you can do, though the main mode is creating your own head coach and taking him through the Coaches Hall of Fame to become the best that there ever was. Given that it was made by EA Sports, the base of this game, quite obviously, is Madden. But instead of playing the plays yourselves, you're parked on the sideline calling the shots. In any given game, you're given the opportunity to talk to different groups of players, whether they're on the field or sitting on the sideline waiting for action. You can give specific players specific strategies for this game, for the rest of the year, or just the next play. Whether it's focusing on the outside of the field, playing aggressively, watching another certain player. Your coordinators upstairs will call down certain recommended plays based on the schemes they're seeing from the other side of the ball, and you can choose to agree with them and call those plays, or call your own. There is a lot to do and a lot to think about if you so choose, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a laid-back experience because you're not the one actually running the plays. Although, strangely, the game makes you snap the ball instead of your quarterback. I still don't quite get that one. But yeah, NFL head coach is a fun time and gives you a really fun strategic look at football. It's kind of a shame that they didn't make more of these games, but I suppose if you're buying a football game you're most likely playing to have control over the ball and the game, so limited appeal or something like that. I know things seem sort of bleak with the further extension of the EA NFL contract. It seems like people are never going to get options other than Madden ever again. It's kind of discouraging, but if we've learned anything today, there is a rich history of football games going back as long as, well, video games that are absolutely worth revisiting and playing today. Besides, there is some good news on the horizon with all these talks of EA possibly bringing back the NCAA football series. Now, we all know that they achieved the pinnacle of the series back with NCAA 14, but you never know. Maybe they'll bring back the series, add some cool features, and not be total pieces of shit about it. But just in case they do, there's always Doug Flutie Maximum Football. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you're out there playing the new installment of Madden, let me know down in the comments how it is. I'm probably not going to get it because I haven't really purchased Maddens since the PS2 days. I'll try one every now and again, but I'm just not impressed. But if it's worth checking out, let me know. Maybe I'll play it on stream. All that being said, real football is back, so I hope your team does well this season and that you have watch parties every Sunday. I'll be rooting in vain for the Broncos, but other than that, I'll probably play some more ESPN football because that shit's fun as hell. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys next time.